Hello and welcome to this special horror season episode of Schizofenik Screen Study, the part of my channel that analyses key scenes, themes, sequences and characters from classic films. I'm HT Fennick, and in today's video I'll be looking at John Carpenter's 1982 version of The Thing, which is my personal favourite of the three. In actual fact, this screen study was requested by a good friend of mine named The Business of Fear, as well as some other loyal subscribers, so I hope that this video does not disappoint. In this film, Carpenter presents us with a masterclass in creating tension, suspense, and shock, which is exactly what I'll be exploring. I have chosen 4 sequences for analysis, which include the opening, the demise of Bennings, the arm bite, and the blood test scenes. So with that said, let's waste no time and begin our screen study. The film opens with a vast panoramic shot of the snowy mountains of the Antarctic winter of 1982. This widescreen cinematography collaborates beautifully with Ennio Morricone's haunting score. The ominous single chords gain an intensity like a heartbeat, which mirrors our own tension. Instantly we are filled with feelings of isolation as the helicopter is literally a speck on this epic backdrop. Immediately we are presented with a narrative enigma as the helicopter's passenger is firing at a dog. We ask ourselves, why is he doing this? A dog is not a prey animal, so is he just using it for target practice? Is he desperate for food, or is he trying to kill the dog for some unknown reason to us? Since dogs are normally presented as man's best friend, this event serves as a narrative hook. We are missing information because the film has cleverly started in mid-story. As a result, we are desperate to know more. We come to realise that the men attempting to kill the dog are Norwegian, but what are they doing on Station 4 of the United States National Science Institute? Just as the dog is about to be killed, it makes a friendly show and dance towards the American Bennings, who is shot in the leg before Gary kills the Norwegian aggressor. We share the character's suspense as to why anyone would want to kill such a benign dog. Later on, MacReady prepares to brave the elements and fly to the Norwegian station where things begin to become more tense. When we cut back to the American base, the camera tilts and pans beneath a ping-pong table where the dog lies. Its ears perk up as the sound of the helicopter is heard. The way this dog stares at the helicopter has always been unnerving to me. It is as if it knows something we don't. Could it be that the dog knows what threat awaits the men at the Norwegian base? Is the dog nervous at what they might find and bring back? Is this why it is hidden under the table? However, when we think back to why the dog was being shot at in the first scene, we wonder if the dog is the actual threat. Could this animal be perturbed by the fact that they might discover the truth about it? Whichever way we look at it, the intensity in which the dog watches the helicopter makes us feel that it has more awareness than an ordinary canine. Has this creature tricked these men with its friendly displays of affection? Is the dog the actual threat? Subsequently, our fears are compounded with Carpenter's use of tracking shots along the isolated corridors. Combined with his narrow field of vision, we are left uneasy as to what might jump out at us from either side. However, unlike in Halloween, this is not the killer's POV, and therefore the emergence of the dog makes us feel like something is watching it. Somehow the diegetic music does nothing to settle our fears, and our ears seem to home in on the howling wind. As the dog approaches the camera, we are led towards a room with a mysterious silhouette. Not much happens in this sequence, however that is precisely why I have chosen it as my first example. Without ever revealing the threat, Carpenter still ensures that we are on the edge of our seats through tension and suspense. As the story progresses, it is revealed that the dog was indeed the alien. This creature would literally digest and study every cell of its victim before imitating and replicating it exactly. This original concept of a shape-shifting alien added tension as it created the film's paranoia. Just who is the alien? This question would ultimately cause these characters to tear themselves apart, similar to the protagonist in Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs years later. My next scene for analysis looks at the demise of Bennings, who is seen with Windows carrying the alien corpse into a storeroom. I have selected this sequence which makes fantastic use of Carpenter's widescreen frame and depth of field. The alien corpse remains in the foreground as the men talk in the background. The subtle hint of the alien moving under the sheets is faint but obvious to the audience, however the men are completely oblivious to it. This creates great tension for the audience as it puts us in a more knowledgeable position. The use of omniscient narration forces us to worry for the fate of the characters. We almost plead with them to turn around and witness the moving alien, but when Windows does just that, he cannot be sure of what he saw and to our annoyance chooses to ignore it, sealing Bennings' fate. Moments later, a close-up reveals a red thick liquid oozing out of the dead creature as Bennings continues unaware in the background. Carpenter holds the tension fantastically with this rather long take before cutting to the harsh outdoors. It would be a great disservice to Carpenter if I did not say anything about his use of setting, so I think now would be as good a time as any. The setting plays an integral role in creating tension and suspense in this movie. Firstly, the Antarctic winter provides an expansive and isolated white hell from which there is no escape. Carpenter clearly applies the old Dark House formula to the great outdoors and the American research station. The outcome of this formula sees that the characters are cut off from the rest of the world and they are picked off one by one as a result. This was a technique used before in the Nostromo of Alien and later within the jungle of Predator. In this movie, it works perfectly in enhancing our feelings of hopeless dread. When Windows returns, he witnesses a shredded orange jacket lying covered with red ooze. However, what he sees next is the stuff of nightmares. This moment shocks the audience as we try to untangle and make sense of what we are seeing. Caught in what seems like an intimate moment, the alien is in fact procreating to an extent as it replicates Bennings. Understandably, Windows rushes away in terror, alerting MacReady and Fuchs, who follow him back to the storeroom. When there is nothing to be found, the alarm sounds as MacReady spots a normal-looking Bennings, making a run for it. The sound of this alarm only adds to the tension as the men follow with flares in hand. Framed from behind, we only see the back of a hunched Bennings and wonder what we are going to witness when they catch up to him. What will he or it do in retaliation? What happens next, however, is even more disturbing than anything I could have imagined. As the men surround the thing, it realizes it has been caught before it can fully form and drops to its knees, acknowledging defeat. They realize it is not Bennings as soon as they see its oddly clawed hands. However, if I was ever worried about what I was going to see, I should not have bothered. Instead, it is what we hear that is truly disturbing. The thing opens its mouth to unleash the most unearthly scream I have ever heard. The juxtapositioning of this sound coming from such a normal-looking face is something I always found disturbing. It is certainly the type of scream that murders your plans of getting any sleep. As a result, the men are left with no choice but to burn their former comrade. This moment is also the first time we fully witness what the thing can do to the human victim. Although it may not seem as terrible as we initially expected, like the chestburster in Alien, it is possibly worse upon closer inspection. This is because, unlike Ridley Scott's Alien, Carpenter's The Thing is brave enough to move away from the humanoid threat. The fact that this creature can take the form of anything it comes into contact with is what creates the true horror. None of the men can fully trust each other after this moment, therefore the alien turns mankind against itself through paranoia. In Alien, we had the parasite. In The Thing, we have the paranoid. Furthermore, it raises philosophical questions, such as at which point does a human being stop being a human? When do they become a thing? If the thing fully formed into Bennings, would it have become Bennings? If neither Bennings or the rest of the team had any idea that he was the thing, could he just have carried on living as Bennings? Aside from losing your life, the thing assures that you also lose your identity, a theme explored in the anti-communist films of the 1950s. This idea of trust and turning on each other leads us on nicely to our next two sequences, which include the arm bite and the blood test scenes. Now the tension truly intensifies sometime later when Knowles returns half frozen, confessing that he has cut MacReady loose from the guide rope. He explains that he did this after the two inspected MacReady's room, where Knowles found another item of shredded clothing, a clear indicator of one's transformation into the Thing. When MacReady forces his way back in, everyone suspects him of being the alien as he holds up a flare and some dynamite. The men advance on him before he breaks free, which causes Norris to collapse, possibly suffering from cardiac arrest. The next scene is possibly one of the most iconic in the entire film and is possibly on par with the chestburster moment in Alien. Carpenter has spent the entire film building tension and suspense, however now it is time for some shock. As Cooper works on Norris, our attention is on MacReady, who is still enraged at the men. However, our focus is shifted further when Clark takes one of the doctor's scalpels. As a result, we are completely caught off guard during Cooper's second attempt to resuscitate Norris with the defibrillator. To our shock horror, Norris's stomach opens up and bites Cooper's arms off. The moment is completely unexpected and serves as our first jump moment. In the very next scene, we have another masterclass in both shock and the creation of tension and suspense. With a desire to find out who is the Thing, MacReady ties up all the men but Windows in order to draw blood from each of them. MacReady explains that when a man bleeds, it's just tissue. However, this creature's blood will fight back if it feels threatened. After taking a blood sample from each man, MacReady starts a bizarre game of Russian roulette, using a red-hot wire to prod the pools of blood as we try to decipher just who is the Thing. Firstly, Windows tests clean, then to our relief, Mac, followed by Cooper and Clark. With each elimination, the tension builds as we home in on the Thing. Narrative enigmas emerge, such as just how will the blood react? Before we can gather our thoughts, MacReady prepares to test Palmer's blood. Carpenter typically draws our attention away from the test, as Gary states that this is pure nonsense and doesn't prove a thing. MacReady draws our focus away further from Palmer by stating that he suspects Gary. Right on that note, Palmer's blood leaps out of the container with a screech and the Thing is revealed in our second jump moment. Palmer begins to convulse as our tension is intensified with MacReady's misfiring flamethrower. Palmer's face only compounds our unease, which is reflected in the surrounding characters panicking helplessly. After throwing Windows, the Thing is burnt by MacReady and the blood test continues to prove the rest of the men are clean. In addition to the visceral shock, we are presented with the intellectual kind, as we never would have suspected Palmer, a comic relief character, to be the alien. Upon enduring all this shock, Carpenter rewards us with some much needed comic relief. Gary utters possibly the funniest line in the entire film when he says, "I know you gentlemen have been through a lot, but when you find the time, I'd rather not spend the rest of this winter tied to this fucking couch." And with that said, let me not keep you on the couch any longer for this winter. But before you go, I wanted to ask if you liked the music I used. Please be aware that it was made for me by Lost Dream Productions, so a massive thank you, sir, for providing me with a track that perfectly matched the mood of this video and even echoed Morricone's classic score. So, as this tune plays us out, I would like to thank you all for watching and tune in again as horror season continues throughout the month of October. Finally, please be sure to like and subscribe if you'd like to subscribe.